Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. I'm Ken Biberai, and welcome to Coffee with Ken, a thought leadership series at the nexus of business and politics. I am thrilled to be again in person, hybrid for everybody watching at home. We are on the rooftop of Avocet Tower, a beautiful mixed-use 520,000 square foot building in the heart of Bethesda with an AC hotel and trophy office. Big kudos to Stonebridge, Invesco, and all their partners for hosting us and their vision here today. Now I got to tell you, the reason we're here and why I love this building and I love this location is the awe-inspiring and visionary views of the Commonwealth of Virginia right over there. It's just magnificent. I know the governor loves coming here and
I know. Listen, I agree. Virginia's fine to look at. I wouldn't want to live there, but it's, yeah, good views, I guess.
And we're here with the most hostile governor in the United States, you know? Doesn't pull any punches. If you try to leave, he has those signs that say leave no one behind, right? So like if you leave, he's pulling you back.
That's exactly right.
It's amazing.
Actually, it's for people who are going from Maryland, Virginia, the sign actually says, "Are you serious?"
Okay, listen, this is, yeah, let's get real. All right, look, the governor's done an incredible, has an incredible bio, right? A Rhodes Scholar, captain of the 82nd Airborne, White House Fellow, author of The Other Wes Moore, a business leader, former CEO of the Robin Hood Foundation. But one of the things that nobody really knows or appreciates about him is he actually helped create Coffee with Ken. And just for a 2-second story, we hosted Wes Moore when he was the head of the Robin Hood Foundation on February 26, 2020 in downtown DC so he can meet some folks in DC and share his vision and the work of Robin Hood. And that event was titled Social Innovation Summit, New America Foundation, and Ken Biberai invite you to. And countless people kind of said, you know, it's a little weird, your name's on there, dude. Like, why would your name be listed with these two prestigious organizations? And it was kind of well, that's a good point. I mean, but, you know, Wes came because I invited him, most of the guests came. Fast forward a month to the day, on March 25th, we had our first Coffee with Ken, and it was that event that kind of, you know, made me feel like I had the confidence to say, you know what, let's just do our own conversations and bring people together.
That's right.
Now, the one thing in that talk on February 26th, because I'm a terrible moderator and interviewer, we didn't talk about COVID-19. We didn't talk about a pandemic that was going to send us home 3 weeks later for 3 years.
Yep.
So now, as governor, how are you thinking about these issues, the horizon, things that aren't even on your radar screen? This morning, 22-word tweet came out that AI is an existential threat and could end humanity. How do you think about these challenges that we don't even know about today and maybe AI in general?
Oof.
No pressure.
No. Just start high and hot. No, but it's true, and I'm thankful because it is true. The idea of Coffee with Ken, it really did. I mean, it birthed through so much of the idea of saying, how can we have elevated conversations at a time when society was really yearning for it and trying to understand what was going on. And so I consider myself a purveyor of talent, and I'm thankful to be an angel investor.
You can tell Oprah.
That's right. That's right. But you know, someone asked me the other day. They said, "What are the things that you spend a lot of time thinking about?" And I told them, I said, you know, the things that I can control, we actually feel really good about the things we've been able to get done, about the pace that Maryland is moving in, about the new spirit and level of partnership that we have, both with local jurisdictions and the delegation and our federal delegation and state delegation, et cetera. It's the things that you don't control. Those are the things that always are going to take up an inordinate amount of mind share for you. You know, the fact that truthfully that we are still, you know, we'll find out more today, and hopefully we have a deal. But the fact that things like I had to spend hours of my day preparing for a default, and what that was going to mean economically for the state of Maryland, things like that you have no control over, but you have to prepare for. This issue of technology, of AI, is one of those things. Now, I think AI offers a tremendous amount of promise and opportunity. I think AI is going to have a way of being able to capture new innovations that our society, frankly, has needed. And if we're smart about it, we can really move in front of and be able to benefit from them. I also think that AI is something that if we don't have a measure of understanding or control over, that it will have dire consequences. And we have to understand and appreciate how fast this thing is moving. Where, there have been new technologies that we have seen within our society that, frankly, we still have not gotten our arms fully around. I mean, take a look at the fact that social media is now, 20 years old? 15, 20 years old? We still don't have a full understanding of the impacts of social media, about what it's continuing to do. We're still hearing new reports about the impact of social media on children, impacts of social media on teenagers, et cetera. So that is an example of an industry that has had significant impact on our lives, significant impact on industry, significant impact on our economic status, and at the same time, because we were caught relatively flat-footed, and because we saw something that was moving very quickly, we're still struggling to keep our arms wrapped around. I do not want that to happen with AI, and it's why in the state of Maryland that we are not only putting together, task force about how exactly to build it out, but then also already working with our Department of Information Technology, as we call it in the state of Maryland, Do It, to actually say, how do we calcify something in Do It that is focusing exclusively on AI, focus exclusively on making sure we're capturing the benefits, yet at the same time preparing for the downside risks that could happen with a new technology that, as we continue to see, is evolving very, very quickly, and in ways that by the time we've caught up with what's happened 6 months ago, the evolution in technology has already advanced now another 18 months.
So speaking of things you're in control of, you win the election in November, you get inaugurated in January, and you're full steam ahead into a legislative session. Mm-hmm. And I think it was in the first 100 days, over 260 bills passed and signed, a $60 billion budget approved and put into place. You traveled thousands of miles across Maryland. You poured beers at the O's home opener. You went to Preakness. I mean, it's been a busy schedule.
Yes.
Talk about your philosophy and your kind of the speed and velocity in which you seek to govern, and how maybe it's different or the same from the campaign.
Yeah, I mean, you can't hit a moving target.
Yeah.
But it's funny because, I mean, we campaigned hard. And I think there were a lot of people who would say to us during the campaign, I'm looking at my dear friends, Susie and Bruce Turnbull, who were some of the engines behind everything we got done. And when people would say, you guys are everywhere. And our answer was always, get used to it, because that's how we plan on governing. And that is just how we've planned on governing. We knew that the state of Maryland, we came in with a philosophy that the state of Maryland was ready for this kind of speed. That the state of Maryland was ready to have an infrastructure that was going to take governance seriously, that was going to move economically, that when you think about the assets of the state of Maryland, and we can talk about some of that in a second, there's no reason for the state of Maryland to be 47th of 50 in economic competitiveness. No reason, right? Except that's a choice we were making, that we just chose not to be competitive. There's no reason for national GDP over the past decade to have risen 23%, but for the state of Maryland to have risen 11, right? We're falling behind. And we're falling behind not because we don't have the natural tools, not because we don't have the natural assets. We were choosing to. That we had become a state that was asset rich and strategy poor. And so the thing that we wanted to do from our very earliest days was be able to show a different speed, a different momentum, and a different sense of partnership in the way that we wanted to be able to get this done. That we knew this was going to establish a new sense of partnership with our local jurisdictions and our local electeds. And I'm thankful for the fact that we got the county executive here in Montgomery County here, the council president, right there, President Glass, Councilmember Friedson. So it's like we're fostering a new sense of partnership, but also it's a new sense of partnership with the private sector, a new sense of partnership with nonprofits, a new sense of partnership with the federal government. But that we could show in our first 100 days, when we said that this was going to be the moment when the state was going to make the most aggressive push on child poverty that this state has ever seen. And in our first 100 days, in our first 4 and 5 months, we're able to do things like making sure that we can make permanent the child tax credit, have an enhanced earned income tax credit, make sure that we can get a state to a $15 minimum wage, because gone should be the days when we have people who are working, and in some cases working multiple jobs, and still living at or below a poverty line. Just those bills alone were able to lift 34,000 children in our state of Maryland up a rung in the economic ladder with a stroke of a pen. Just those bills alone were able to push 154,000 Maryland families up a rung on the economic ladder as with the child tax credit and earned income tax credit. That we could say that we could be a state that could be both more competitive and also be more equitable. And that's why we were able to do things like pass legislation that focus on making sure that we can get broadband expansion, and that broadband all throughout the state of Maryland should be both affordable and accessible, and I want that done by the end of my first term. That when we said that we can do things like actually invest in innovative technologies, because right now when people say, well, what is Maryland known for? I can tell you a lot of things that we do well, but I can't tell you what we're known for. That's a problem, where we have to actually make decisions and asset map our state and invest properly and work with the private sector to be able to create things like measurements of job growth and job creation, but also make sure that it's not just about jobs. This is about pathways to work and wages and wealth, long-term wealth for our families and our communities. So if we could do these things, focus on education, focus on public safety, but show that the state is ready to move in a new sense of partnership, that Maryland was going to win the decade. And I think we're proving that, that we mean what we say on that.
So part of economic development is a strategy to empower and support your small businesses, your local communities, retain them so they don't leave, but simultaneously take advantage of opportunities. For example, federal government's passage of infrastructure bill, Inflation Reduction Act, CHIPS Act. You need to get out there and kind of try to attract those companies competing with other states.
That's right.
So how do you weave in a strategy of kind of taking care of the smallest businesses, but ensuring the Marriotts of the world, the Envivas of the world are locating in Maryland? And EV technology and climate, I mean, you've been at the forefront of pushing clean tech legislation.
Yeah.
So how do you weave in kind of the support from the smallest businesses to the largest kind of movers of economy?
So I think there's a few different things that we have to do. One, for the small businesses, we have to do some basic measurements of incentivizing investment and incentivizing basic access to capital, right? Because that becomes one of the biggest challenges, particularly for Maryland small businesses, is access to capital. And so it's the reason why we were able to get things like the Innovative Economy Act of 2023 that we authored and got that passed in the General Assembly, which is basically about how are we incentivizing increased measures of liquidity and access to capital to our small businesses, particularly those in low and moderate income communities. Particularly those that we know that we need to have a measurement of economic support, economic engines, economic regeneration that has just been missing from a lot of those communities. But it's also about making sure that we're reducing the blockage that so many of these businesses face in the first place. That we know it is about things like, corporate tax rates and that type of thing, but also make it easier for me to do business here. Don't make everything have to take 3 years in order to get permitting done. Don't make it more complicated for me to be able to establish my home or my business in the state of Maryland than in the neighboring jurisdictions. And so that's why things like being able to target on which industries are best to be able to support in specific jurisdictions is a core focus that we have. We have we're going to be making some news in a few days. I'll put it that way.
You can do it here.
I think the team might kill me. But people are going to realize that I take this idea of economic competitiveness very, very seriously. I'm competitive by nature on pretty much everything. But I take economic competitiveness very, very seriously. And Maryland is going to be making some announcements pretty soon on some things that we're going to be doing to show what that looks like and the kind of framework that we want to put together to make that happen. And when we talk about that, it is things like how are you asset mapping our state? Because we know that there are certain innovations that are taking place here in Montgomery County or in the DC suburbs that we have to target, that we have to invest in. When you think about everything from life sciences to bio to the fact that this area, this region is going to be the capital of quantum globally, right? Now that's not going to be what you're going to see in Harford and Cecil County. It's not going to see what you're going to see necessarily in Baltimore or Central Maryland, where you look at the fact that cyber the Central Maryland and the Baltimore region is the home of cyber globally. That is literally the home of the NSA. It's the home of U.S. Cyber Command. So we're going to invest differently there than we will in a Montgomery County. Versus when we're out just yesterday, we're out at a Volvo plant, right? And at a Volvo plant, when they're talking about the things that we're looking for in terms of our employees, we have a massive shortage of employees. And frankly, we'll take people who have high school degrees that can be trained. It's a very different industry. And so we have to be able to focus and actually target our investments towards that in a way that I think Maryland has been, frankly, lazy and undisciplined in the way that we have targeted economic growth and economic development. You've got to be strategic and you've got to make choices. So when you look at things like why Massachusetts became the biotech capital of the country, it didn't happen by accident. They said, we've got Harvard, we've got MIT, why are we not leveraging this to make this the biotech capital of the country? And they did, and they were successful. When you look at what's happening in Atlanta, I'm proud of the fact that, I was speaking with Fred earlier from Apple, I know it's around here somewhere, about the work that we just got passed on film tax credits. And people say, well, why was that important? We're talking about something of film, media, and content creation is a $1 trillion industry.
Is it?
$1 trillion industry. And so I'm thinking about why you have places like Atlanta, where Atlanta chose to be competitive in this area. Now Atlanta is rivaling Hollywood for film productions. I mean, they're literally shooting Marvel movies in Atlanta and not in Hollywood. And I've said, I want Black Panther 3 filmed in the state of Maryland. So it's like, but we've got to make choices and we've got to be aggressive. And there's one other thing that I'll say too that I think does become important. And I was speaking with the county executive about this. I want Maryland also to be the place where we are being smart and targeted about political refugees. And what I mean by that is this. You've got businesses and you've got entrepreneurs that are saying, I'm building a business, I'm building an industry, I'm growing our platform in, frankly, a state that is doing things like restricting abortion access and abortion rights for many of my employees. That's doing things like making my employees and they're attending schools where they're being told what they can read and what's important and what's not. We are going to be aggressive in saying, come to Maryland. We're going after these industries. Any place and any state that wants to put together and make a hallmark for your state, well, we're going to restrict your access to basic rights. We want to say that in the state of Maryland, we think differently. In the state of Maryland, we believe differently. In the state of Maryland, we are going to aggressively bring you here. And we want you to grow your business. We want you to bring your employees. We want you to grow your families. We want you to do it right here in the state of Maryland. So the idea of even political migration is something that I know that our Commerce Department is actually working on as well.
That's great. We recognized Memorial Day this week, and I want to thank you for your service. And two other specific bills that you passed and initiatives you had were around veterans, younger veterans in care and opportunity, as well as the Service Act.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about what service means to you and your commitment to our service members, as well as to young people who are looking for that next kind of initiative after school.
Yeah, I'm really proud of these bills and this work. And one, I'm really proud that we were able to not just get all of these bills done. One thing I'm very proud of is the fact that we introduced 10 bills in this legislative session. And we went 10 for 10 on our bills. But we didn't just go 10 for 10, we went 10 for 10 bipartisan. Yeah. We got Democrat and Republican votes on every single one of the bills that we authored, and we were very intentional.
Wait, that could happen?
That it can actually happen. It can actually happen. You can actually depoliticize these issues and get back to the core basis of both common sense and core values, and be able to make sure that you can get votes from Montgomery County to Princess Anne to Allegheny to Baltimore City to Cecil County, and to know that you can have a state that's actually ready to work together on these issues. And there was a framework that we took on this for two of the bills that dealt with specifically with veterans, because I also believe if you really want to make yourself an economic hub, make this the best state in the country for veterans. because veterans are not just remarkable employees, they're remarkable employers. They're remarkable entrepreneurs. And by the way, the average veteran is 42 years old, so this is a person who now has at least a career or two left in them. These are people who are buying homes. These are people who are starting businesses. These are people who are going out to restaurants. These are people who are keeping their families in that area. I want veterans to come and stay in the state of Maryland, particularly when you think about the amount of military assets that we have here in the state of Maryland. We have Fort Meade, we have Aberdeen, we have Andrews, we have the Naval Academy. We have all these assets right there. And I refuse for Maryland to be a farm system for anybody else. Refuse it. And so the two bills that we passed that focus on that, one was Healthcare for Heroes Act. And that bill is going to put Maryland on pace to make Maryland the first state in this country that will provide dental and health care for all members of the Maryland National Guard. All right, first state in this country. Because I tell you right now, if someone is willing to serve in their state's National Guard, they should not have to worry about dental care. All right, they've earned that. And the second thing is the Keep Our Heroes Home Act, where in this act that we just passed this year, we have now just given younger veterans in the state of Maryland the largest tax cut in a generation in the state of Maryland. The SERVE Act is something that we're also really proud of as well. And so what the SERVE Act does is this. The SERVE Act now makes Maryland the first state in the country that is going to offer a service year option to our high school graduates. And so when a person graduates from high school, they can go on to the workforce, they can go on to higher education, go on to college, they can go to trade school, they can join the military. They have a few different things they can do. Well, in the state of Maryland, we have another option. You can have a year of service to the state of Maryland. And you can choose however you want to do it. You can go off and work in the environment. You can go on and work in early childhood. You can go and work in criminal justice reform. You can go and serve veterans. You can go and serve older Marylanders. It doesn't matter. It is your choice, and we will help you with that. And we're going to do it for three reasons. One, I'm a big believer in experiential learning. Give young people a chance to learn what it is that they want to do, and that will give them a pathway to figure out how they want to spend their life and how they want to spend their time. And it's exactly what employers are looking for as well. The second reason, this gives a financial cushion and an earned financial buffer to our young people because these are paid opportunities, and it gives them a chance to whatever it is they choose to do next, higher education, go into the workforce, join the military, stay at the place that they're working at. It gives them a little bit of a financial buffer because we know the complications that people between the ages of 18 and 23 have when it comes to that transition into higher education or just life. And so it's also working in a curriculum that focuses on life skills, financial literacy, financial education. The third reason, though, it's because service is sticky. Those who serve together generally stay together. And I know I saw that on the campaign trail, where I had people who I served with in Afghanistan who came and campaigned for me and were door knocking. Many of them were not Marylanders. Many of them were not Democrats. But they were literally coming and knocking on doors and simply telling people, let me tell you about the guy that I served with. Service is sticky. And we've got to get a chance for us to get to know each other again, because in this time of political divisiveness and political vitriol, service will help to save us. And I want Maryland to serve. And so by passing these three bills, Keep Our Heroes Home Act, Healthcare for Heroes Act, and the SERVE Act, I think we have helped to set up Maryland to be able to become not just a leader of when it comes to supporting veterans, but really helping to underscore the fact that what our society needs most right now in this bitter political and divisive political environment is we've got to get to know each other again. We've got to serve together. And if we can do that, service will help to save us.
And some coffee along the way.
And some coffee.
You've been on the commencement circuit lately, and at Morehouse, I think you really leaned in on protecting history.
Yeah.
And we are in a strange time with social media and misinformation and an effort to kind of reshape a narrative of historical events. What was the theme there? What did you want those young people to understand about why it's important to protect history?
You know, we thought a lot about this in going down to Morehouse, and Morehouse is a pretty remarkable place. It's one of the oldest historically black college universities in this country. It's the only place in the country where on that given Sunday you're going to watch over 400 black men graduate from college from the same institution. It's also a place that I was shocked to learn this and to see this firsthand. It's the only commencement I've ever been to that more alumni attend commencement than graduates. People were flying in from around the country to watch the class of 2023 graduate, which I thought was so beautiful because it was really showing these young men that you're entering into something special. You're entering into something cherished. You're entering into a bond that is unbreakable. And it was important for that group to understand the history of, the importance of history and the shoulders that they're standing on. The fact that, Morehouse men, and I always say, I said it down there, I said, Morehouse, if anyone has ever met anybody from Morehouse, it's like, how do you know you met someone from Morehouse? They'll tell you in the first 3 minutes. But there's a pride in men of Morehouse. There's a pride of what they've been through. There's a pride of the shoulders they stand on, that they say that this is the alma mater of Benjamin E. Mays and Martin Luther King Jr. There's a pride in the yard. And I told them that when you go out into the world, you are entering into a phase where we have watched attacks on history like we have never seen before. That we haven't just seen attacks on history, we've seen legislation that has been passed telling people that reading about the life of, we literally have watching books being banned that are about the life of Hank Aaron, the life of Roberto Clemente. We've seen how, Toni Morrison's legendary books, Beloved and The Bluest Eye, have been banned from curriculum. We've seen how we literally now have students that have been put under investigation because they've done reports on Stonewall. We watch a teacher right now in Florida under investigation because she had the audacity of showing a Disney movie with a gay character in her classroom. We've never seen this type of frontward-facing, well, like we have. In recent history, we've never seen this frontward-facing attack on history like we've seen before. And so the message that I really wanted to send out to the young men of Morehouse is protect your history because it's your strength. It's your foundation. Understanding that when people say, well, we don't want people learning certain things because we don't want people to feel, bad, that's not what they're attacking. This is not about making people feel bad about history. It's about making sure that you never understand the strength of your history. The fact that if you understand your history, there's nothing that stands in front of you that should intimidate you. When you know your history, there's no obstacle in front of you that should ever make you flinch because you know the challenges that have come before you were even an idea or an existence. And you know you have the strength to be able to overcome them. And the other message that I wanted to send to them was this too. Do not allow the attacks on other people's history to go unchecked. Because when we are watching attacks that are taking place around our LGBTQ youth, when you're watching attacks that are taking place on the Jewish community, when you're watching attacks that are taking place on the Latinos, understand, attacking Roberto Clemente is not about attacking Puerto Ricans. There's something bigger going on. And so you have to stand up and protect history, and not just your own, but to protect the history of others too. Because it is truly the foundation that we are going to have as a society, and is the foundation that we are going to have as a country to be able to understand that nothing in front of us is impossible, because we've already overcome the impossible and we've risen. And that's why I wanted these young men to know that part of your responsibility, no matter what it is that you choose to do next, part of your responsibility is you have to be a protector of history, because it will be our strength.
So as we wind down, one of the fun things about this series has been the breadth of the audience, which is what I'm most excited about, right?
Amazing.
Leaders from the private sector. You got Greg Brony, the owner of Bowie Bay Sox and Attain. You have nonprofit leaders, public sector leaders, what's your ask? What do you want folks here to walk away with, regardless of their sector, their industry, and where they're coming from, or folks watching at home? What's your ask of them?
Well, first to Greg, I want to throw out the first pitch. So that's my ask. My ask for people and frankly, it's for people in the private sector, whether it be large businesses, small businesses, nonprofits, is choose Maryland. This is going to be Maryland's decade. And it's going to be Maryland's decade because of you. Because we as a state are going to choose to compete. We're going to choose to move fast. We're going to choose to leverage the fact that we do have over 50 military installations in the state of Maryland. And we're going to choose to make sure that we are centering industries on things that can balance the fact that we have this remarkable talent here in the state of Maryland, but that's been underutilized. We're going to choose to leverage the fact that we have some of the best institutions of higher education inside the state of Maryland. The state of Maryland is the home of places like University of Maryland College Park, of Johns Hopkins University, of Towson University, of some of the best two-year colleges in America, to include Montgomery College, right? 16 community colleges in the state of Maryland. They have one of the best K-12 systems, and we're actually we are creating a K-12 system in this time that's actually going to be aligned with the private sector, because we have to make sure that the curriculum that students are learning is actually the curriculum that our employers actually need and are cherishing and are yearning for. And frankly, and gone should be the days. Well, again, I love the fact that we have some of the best institutions of higher education. I shared this yesterday when I was up in Hagerstown. I said we have some of the best four-year institutions in the country here in the state of Maryland, but now in our time, we are going to end this myth that every single one of our students must attend one in order to be economically successful. It's not true. That we are going to find a time when we have and actually leveraging the fact that whether it's farmland or suburbs or cities or mountains or beaches, that we have literally hundreds of acres of shoreline. That Maryland is the place where people should want to grow and stay and live and build. Your businesses, your families. And so my ask is this: stay close. Choose Maryland. Help us be better. Let us know the challenges you're facing and let us move them out of the way. Let us know the things that we can do to be more competitive. And then I want you all to be part of one of the great American stories that we're going to see over this next decade, which will be the growth and the excellence of the state of Maryland.
Nice. Well, look, summer's upon us. Governor, have you made any plans for the summer? I mean, Jersey Shore, Rehoboth, Virginia Beach, they're all close here.
As is Ocean City. No, I tell you, we're, one thing that I've really actually loved throughout this whole process, and I say this as a new dad who, by the way, Valley, God bless you for not just dealing with beautiful, beautiful children and a new 7-month-old baby, but dealing with him all day long. It's amazing, the patience of Job here. But I think one thing that we are going to focus on is again, we are moving fast as a state. I love this team and this administration. I will put the administration that we're building against any gubernatorial administration in this country, unapologetically. I also know this, that this summer we are gonna, and I'm going to stress and reinforce to our team that we want to make sure that people are actually taking a beat and taking a breath, remembering the remarkable gift that we've been given by the people of this state. I'm actually going to do for the first time, I said this summer, I actually want to do things like a tour of the State House and a tour of Annapolis, where this is the oldest active state house in the country. This State House in the state of Maryland, I hope you all come and visit it. It is literally where George Washington resigned his commission. Annapolis and the Dome, the Capitol Dome in Annapolis, is literally the foundation of democracy. It's the place where George Washington said, the power is not mine. The power belongs to the people. And I'm not passing it down to my bloodline. I'm passing it back to the people, then let them decide who should be in charge next. Annapolis is literally the foundation. It's the former capital of the U.S., and it is literally the foundation of our democracy. And you know something I'm going to do this summer? I'm going to spend time, and I'm going to do a personal tour of the State House. I'm going to do personal tours of Annapolis. I want to continue to learn about the place that we call home now. And I never, ever, ever want to lose sight of the importance of the place that I have the joy of working in every single day, and the place that I have the joy of calling my office.
Governor, thank you for being here.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
I want to thank Doug, Karen, Ryan, the entire Stonebridge team for their hospitality today.
Yes.
I mean, for buying into this idea, amazing. I want to thank Rise Up Coffee. We're drinking Maryland-based coffee. We also want to thank Seth Goldman and Eat the Change for Just Iced Tea. They dropped off a bunch this morning. I want to thank everyone
Good Montgomery County guy, too.
I rolled it all out, Governor.
That's it.
Well, look, thank you all for being here. Thanks for tuning in. You can follow us at coffeewithken.com. We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. Until next time, folks, thank you.